what kind of opportunities can you look at to get you on the right track going into the next year? If you're an investor, if you are, any type of recruiting strategist, like this is a really great opportunity for any of you to connect with people who are looking to make a big dent in one of those areas in 2024 and start working with them in Q4 of this year.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fuck Your Podcast. I'm Emma Pardo.
And I'm Katie Martin. And today, something we wanted to chat about, only because we're doing this on our end, is what are you doing going into Q4 of this year? So are you guys just phoning it in? Are you planning for next year? Like, what kind of opportunities can you look at to get you on the right track going into the next year? So I know there's a lot of it that we're doing on our end. So as far as events that we're attending, targets that we're setting, but I see a lot of companies kind of coast through that Q4 because in some parts of the country, business slows down with winter. We do a lot in the roofing industry. Doesn't really affect all of our clients, but a lot of people still get into that kind of put it off till next year mindset once the holidays start to happen. And that usually starts to happen around Halloween. So Emma, being that this is not really your first official year as a business owner, like you did some work on your own, but like having
first official, taking it like this is my job. Like,
right.
That's the thing. It's,
yeah.
I always had the real deal, right? Publications on the side of like whatever else I was doing. And I was like, oh yeah, well, technically I'm a business owner, but I'm not like a business owner, if that makes sense. And this year it's like, this is the first time I'm on my own and it's scary.
So thinking about like planning for next year, has that started entering your mind as far as what we're looking to do, going into next year? Like, I know I've started thinking about it. Like what thoughts have you had recently?
So not really, it hasn't really hit me that like, I still think it's the end of July right now. I'm very much behind in that aspect and being like mentally like there. I mean, it sounds bad. Like I'm there, right? But I'm really at the moment have been focused a lot on our targets that we've set now compared to what can we do to boost that next year. If that makes sense. I wouldn't say I haven't given much thought to next year, but I also like nothing specific comes to mind when I think of next year, at least right now, because it doesn't feel like it's like I said, it feels like July. I feel like we're not even close to the end of the year. And literally next week is October. Oh my God.
You're gonna have to get up to speed. Because what's going to happen?
Yes, I'm behind it. It's been a Monday. We've got a 5-year-old with pink eye. We've got Cole's sister in labor. We've got my life as messy as this hair at the moment. I'm not with it at the moment. So sorry, continue.
So, but a lot of people do start to kind of phone it in by the holidays, but this is where you can really like your Q4 targets, as long as you're not trying to make up some sort of huge deficit where you fucked off the rest of the year, like you have the opportunity to really push ahead and like, to get ahead of your competition. So like a lot right now with a lot of our clients, we're building out their entire marketing plan for next year. So they have a real marketing strategy, but I mean, hell, you can do that with your hiring strategy. You could do that with your, you're setting sales targets going into first quarter. Like there's so much that you can just get a head start on, and it doesn't always have to be new stuff. I think where a lot of people get caught up is like, what's the new thing we're going to do in the next year, which is valuable. But if you really just buckle down and focused on what you have in your pipeline, what can you still improve upon, as opposed to just kind of, I think a lot of people kind of treat Q4 like cleaning up the spare, as opposed to really setting a plan like where you could really get ahead and stay ahead. Or I think of it like sprinting through the finish line, as opposed to just kind of coasting because you burned everything up in the first half of the year.
Right. And I feel like that's different with every industry. Like seeing us marketing agency, we're on the go at all times, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to think, okay, what kind in this slow period? I don't feel like we'd necessarily have a slow period, but like for our ideal client, which is in the roofing industry or home service companies, like especially roofing, winter is obviously a less desirable time to put a roof on a house, even though things can happen in the wintertime. They're not really like pushing for that, like the services shift in the different seasons.
Yeah, it depends on what part of the country you're in, right?
Right.
You're gonna have a different approach. But I think like if you think about more than half of the United States if you just drew a straight line down the middle of the country from the West Coast to the East Coast, you're going to have most of the people that are north of that line are going to have some sort of seasonal effect, and some probably not as drastic as others. But then when you're south of that line, it's less, it's different, different time of the year, where honestly your southern states struggle when it's too hot just to be able to keep people working. But yeah, in construction, you're going to have that seasonal. But I'm trying to think of it too. Just, I mean, I know that we work with a bunch of roofing companies, but we work with a lot of other coaches. We work with a lot of other, just general business professions, like there's a variety of, different professions that we work with in industries, but there's an opportunity out there of, especially if you're B2B, like connecting with people in this third quarter, because that's when they're going to start strategizing and planning in the next year. So this is where you typically see an uptick in sales from a consulting service standpoint. So if you're a business coach, if you're an investor, if you are, any type of recruiting strategist, like this is a really great opportunity for any of you to connect with people who are looking to make a big dent in one of those areas in 2024 and start working with them in Q4 of this year, as opposed to always being behind the eight ball a lot. That's why all those roofing conferences are also like in February, because one, it's slow, but two, it's like, let's get your 2024 off to a good start. It's like, dude, you're already like halfway through Q1 by the time you have those events. It's like, so what can you do right now to really focus on getting your business off to more of a jump start in the new year, as opposed to just a whole, like, I always hated the end of the year, like, all right, let's review everything. And if you're not doing that on a monthly basis, and like, let's say you're coming up short from your target, it makes it super depressing. Where I feel like if you're on, any time that I've been in a company where been on the pulse every month, even if we were short, if we were coming up short, we were still course correcting in these smaller areas, which made a huge difference going into the next year, going into the next quarter or into the next year. So just basically not phoning it in. As opposed to waiting to do everything in January, because that's when everybody else is doing. But from a marketing standpoint, there's so much that you can start doing in the fourth quarter that can help position the company even better. That's why I had a ton of companies last year that I worked with, and I specifically worked with them like in November or December, and it put them on a really good track going into the spring. They were super prepared for hiring or for different campaigns that they were running.
Right. It also helps just having that, like, the breather space to figure it out. I mean, if you're not, if you start thinking about it in January, you're not really giving yourself the time or the mental capacity to like work through, because it's not going to always be perfect the first time around. You have to, it's a lot of trial and error working this stuff out, especially being more specific marketing strategies, like doing a review over what you did the previous year, seeing what kind of flows, what you should get rid of. Right. And that's just something, when you start off doing it in January, you're like, oh shit, I already have to do the next thing. You're not really going, okay, what can I do little by little now that's going to be this big impact by the time I would originally start planning this stuff, if that makes sense. So like, what I want to compare it to is, sorry, my legs are in the way. What I want to compare it to is like when you're moving, right? You're moving your house.
Yep.
Like what Cole and I did, basically. It's like we had 1 month of double rent. So it was like a little more work, but we could take our time and go at our own pace and get everything over to this house and get it put exactly how we want it. So thinking about that with like any of like your business day to day, give yourself the time and space to go at your pace and make sure that it's done right the first time instead of just moving everything. I say that as in comparison. Like if we would have just moved everything, I know it would have been 1, way more chaotic. 2, something would have been forgotten. 3, a crisis would have happened. It's the same as like with your business. If you're thinking of what you're doing next, you're making this change, you need to be able to set yourself up to win, not set yourself up to fail.
Well, yeah. And just the added stress of you still have to run things on a day-to-day basis. And there's if you have to bring on like a coach or a consultant, I can see the initial investment to get things going. But I'm just thinking like, even if you didn't hire somebody and you focused on really paying really close attention to what worked and what not worked over the next 3 months in Q4 and start building a plan to fix those things. So that way you're not trying to fix everything, like you said, like moving everything at once. And I think that's because most business owners, they do fear change because they know, well, fuck, this just gonna be more work for me. So it's easier just to do it how we've always done it. And I'll just deal with the problems that come along with that. And what ends up happening is you just keep getting stuck. And we've had clients like that too, where it's like, hey, I recommend that you would do X, Y, and Z. Because I can see this as an outsider. You know, I know that you're the expert in your particular field, but I'm just saying I notice this. If I'm not a full-on expert in what you do, but I can see it, then, but they're just so, it feels so overwhelming, you know, just like with a lot of companies who want to switch softwares, or, you know, if it's a big change, they're not really ready for the pain that sometimes that takes. And sometimes, but the thing is the pain's worse when you wait, and then you're trying to fix the issues on top of the compounding problems, as opposed to slowing down where it feels painful, implementing something new, and then taking off from there.
Right. I think what people get mixed up, or business owners get mixed up, that don't necessarily know marketing or know how marketing is going to affect your business, especially when it comes to the new year and trying to implement something new. I think they want that like instant results. They think it's going to be this like huge shift, and it's going to be this like wild success right off the bat. And the thing is marketing, especially those who want to do low cost or organic marketing, it's a slow burn. That's something you're implementing into your strategy. You have to understand that just because it didn't work day one of Q1 doesn't mean it's not benefiting you by the end of Q1, you know? Yep. So that's something else to think of when you're thinking about doing these strategies. Switching your strategy is just that, give yourself time, give your strategy time so it can benefit you in the long run.
Right. Yeah, that, and it's cumulative, right? So I think the biggest, I hate saying it because we do it, and sometimes it sounds cheesy, but it's like, why aren't you like, start your SWOT analysis now? You know, what are you missing out on? Because a lot of times it could be something really small that makes a huge difference later down the road. And things that I look at is, are you utilizing all of the free marketing efforts? You know, do you need an you know, and it could be marketing related. So the most common thing that I see people drop the ball is, are you constantly focused on acquiring new leads versus what are you doing at a virtual, like a super low cost or a virtually no cost to nurture the list that you currently have, like nurture the current prospects that you currently have? That's usually one of the biggest missed opportunities. You know, how can you utilize automation and AI? Like, that's happening in every industry.
Which I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I've planned out the month of October for 99 Creatives as far as our social content goes.
Yeah, there you go.
So those of you who listen, you get an insider on the fact that sometimes we're not posting in real time. It's more than likely scheduled. Anyway, especially in the roofing industry, I've got blogs coming out about leveraging AI, automation, all that stuff that you can find at 99creatives.com. Anyway, continue.
But yeah, things like that, that you fully could utilize, that you're not utilizing. And it doesn't have to be something super new. It could be something that you already have, where one little adjustment can make a huge difference, right? So there's things like that we've talked about. Also, on the sales side of things, is your sales process efficient? Do you have the right people on your sales team? You know, have you been paying attention to closing ratios throughout the course of the year? Can it be better? Do you have a real leader? Do you have somebody really driving revenue in your company that's not just you as the owner? So there's a lot of things you can look at on the sales side of things. Do your prices need to increase? I mean, that can vary on so many different levels from industry to industry, but those are very common issues. Same thing on the operations side. Like, what inefficiencies? I always look at, regardless of the size of your company, because we've worked with companies really small, we've worked with some pretty big companies. If there was one key person in your organization that, if they went, I hate to say it, if they got hit by a bus tomorrow, but let's not be so morbid, but like, let's say they left the company, and would there be some sort of drastic fallout? Like, is there somebody who is such a hinge pin in your organization that if they weren't available, like, shit would fall apart? Then that's a problem on the operations side. Like, there's no way to see everything that's going on. There's no way to monitor metrics to know that everybody's doing their job. If you're just relying on one particular person, and maybe that's you, that's a problem. So if your business pays your bills and feeds your family, and you are like the end all be all, what would happen if you weren't there? What would happen to your spouse? What would happen to your family? There's got to be some infrastructure in place that somebody could run it, and even if it's not you. So if it's that one key person that you're like, well, I don't have to run it, but I have this person. Well, what happens if that person's gone? What do you have a hold of? And there's so many ways that you could rely on technology versus relying only on a person to get some of those things done. Recruiting and hiring, that's another huge area, especially strategizing now, because if you're planning growth of any kind, does that require hiring? And is your recruiting process in the right spot? So a lot of companies struggle with sales positions, or if you're a company that has another type of role that's really high turnover, what can you change to help prevent that? Or if it's something that's just part of the position where, the turnover is kind of natural based on the type of role that it is, what type of process do you have in place to keep your recruiting funnel full? So, and also looking at, in order for the company to grow, what type of people do you need to hire going into next year? Like, do you have those positions prioritized? Do you have revenue levels that you need to hit in order to be able to fit that person's salary into the budget? So those are all things that you can think of now, and you will probably be in way less of a stressful mode if you just picked one, if you made a list of all of the things that you would want different going into next year, and look at if there's one thing that you could implement to remove that issue. Looking at a list of those things every single week between now and the end of the year is going to put you on a much more solid platform to jump from going into the next year than doing what you've always been doing and kind of
right. And something I want to preface is, like, when Katy and I are talking about what are you doing now to better yourself for next year, it doesn't mean you actively have to be doing something at the moment. It could be something as simple as, this is my goal for next year. I need to sit and plot out the steps it's going to take to get to that goal. And sometimes those steps aren't happening right now. Sometimes they're a time sensitive thing. So at least taking that step to go, what do I want out of next year before next year happens, and being able to create this plan when the time comes for implementation of that plan, you have time to pivot when pivoting is necessary.
Right. That I agree. 100% agree. The biggest thing that I could say that can prevent that is a lot of people, once fall hits, and I've even caught myself kind of doing it, because we have family traditions and things, and I'm not by no means I want anybody to think that I'm saying to skimp on what you might be doing with your family in the holidays. I'm just saying that it's super easy to let your mindset completely be distracted. But it's really easy going into this last part of the year with so many holidays to just think of the business as long as it coasts by, we'll be fine. Like, we just got to finish, let's just finish the year. No, finish the year strong. Finish the year in a way that's going to position you to be better next year. Like, put yourself in a better position. Like, get off to a jump start in January versus trying to scrape by, and giving every excuse in the book of like, oh, everybody just had Christmas and nobody wants to buy anything. And, just like we all do in the fall, where it's like, oh, it's back to school and things are slow. Sure. Like, that stuff's going to happen, but don't let that get into your brain to affect the activity that you do every single week that can make a difference, because it doesn't really matter. Like, I've told people the story all the time. I remember installing a roof, acting as the production manager. I installed a brand new roof the day after Christmas. If you apply the right pressure and people need certain things done, if you have a product or a service that somebody needs, they're going to buy it whenever. But if you stop communicating to them and you stop putting in the effort of pushing things forward, then you're going to end up coasting through the last part of the year, as opposed to being super prepared going into next year.
Right. And what I was going to say is, if you're going to coast at the holidays, you're always going to be coasting at the holidays.
Always at or at some other point. Like, if you continue to allow yourself to do that, and I would really encourage most of you, because I think you made a really good point. I would look at your last few years' numbers in Q4. If some of this this is triggering you, like if you're listening to this and be like, well, it's the holidays. I mean, you probably should stop and think, okay, if I'm getting upset by what they're saying, there's probably some truth in it. Now, is it to some sort of doom and gloom level? No, maybe not. But are there actions that you can take throughout the course of this final quarter that's going to fix some of the problems that you have to position yourself for a better 2024? And yeah, right. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. I mean, we always took advantage of the downtime to clean up some of that stuff. But I mean, as opposed to just your basic cleanup, like, cleaning up, you got to clean up your books in preparation to get your taxes done, and, make sure everything is reconciled, and, go through your filing system. Like, there's some basic stuff that's just natural to do at the end of the year. I'm thinking of like, just it's not normal housekeeping. Like, change the mindset from just the normal housekeeping at the end of the year to what small changes could you really pay attention to and really implement at the end of 2023 that is going to make a difference in that first quarter. So that's the moral of the story, if we're going to have one for this week.
No kidding. No kidding. Yeah, and overall, like, this applies to a lot of things. I know we're mainly talking about, Q4 and into 2024.
Yep.
But that goes for all times of the years. Whatever target you're trying to reach, whatever strategy you're trying to change, whatever you're trying to implement, give yourself time. Because typically when you launch something premature, mistakes start seeping through, and then you just get 10 times more unorganized.
Yep, that I agree. So I know some things that what are some of the free giveaways that we have on our site right now that could help some people? I know that right now we have the social planner.
We have a 90-day social planner. We're perfecting the roofing sales pitch book.
Perfect.
What else? I think you have some coaching stuff, don't you?
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just thinking of like the next 90 days. The social, like if you struggle with being consistent on your social media to get it to generate leads, the 90-day social planner will definitely help you. So check that out on our website. And yeah, under the 99 Creatives website, that'll definitely help. But if there's anything, if anybody wants to just talk about their like what it would look like to build an action plan, or to have us help you build your marketing plan, we could do it either way, either on, the coaching side, if it's more of an overall business strategy versus if it's just a marketing strategy, book a call. So we will have a link to a consultation in the video. So we'll shoot that out
in the podcast description.
Yep. In the podcast description.
Yeah, no, I would love, especially those who, because my expertise is more so social media, if you're looking to grow a certain target or reach a certain target on social media, or grow your social media presence, or any of that stuff, like, I'm fine with a quick consultation about what is like the bare minimum that you can do to make a difference. And it's relatively low cost. It's more so organic stuff, but I'm not in it today. All right. Well, if you are listening and want to hear a topic, want some advice, just want to chat with us, you can reach out to us on Instagram at F__K your pod, or you can email me at Emma@99creatives, or Katy
at 99 Creatives.
Don't forget to set your targets, prepare for 2024, because winter is coming. Don't forget to do the damn thing. Okay, bye.
Adios.